friends at Michele TV Show, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today, and extra excited that today's guest, the fabulous Rita Arrigo. Hello, Rita.
Hi, Michele. Super exciting to be on your TV show. So, yes, very excited.
And I'm so excited, you know, your depth of experience, and for people that may not have come across Rita, she has this incredible background and experience in all things very exciting and cool around technology, whether that's AI and innovation or many of the other areas that we'll talk about today, and using that lens around how can technology support us or innovation support us around creating and building that mindset for success. But before I spoil all of it, Rita, would you like to share more about yourself and your background with people?
Sure, and I love talking about myself, so I'll tell you a bit about it. So I actually started my career studying engineering, and it was pretty exciting at the time. It was the 90s, and PCs were huge, and I never actually ended up working directly as an engineer. I went, because it was a double degree as engineering and computing, I went straight into computing, and it was really exciting because I think that really opened the doors for me, because it wasn't just about how do you make computers work. It was about how do you build applications that make careers and jobs and industries more important. So I spent a long time working in different areas. Started in hardware, loved my hardware jobs because, you know, it was the start of laser printers and inkjets and that kind of stuff. It was super exciting. It was when sales was cool. Got trips to Hayman Island, all this kind of stuff. And then I actually realised I needed to go back to uni because I didn't really understand marketing speak. And I think when you want to do stuff in technology, you've got to go out of the IT department and speak to the business. And that made such a big difference to the way I was able to communicate. I started working at Telstra, and I was involved in launching Big Pond and all the different services that came with that. And, you know, being in a telecommunications company where, you know, they were used to the phone and they'd never really heard of the internet. So it was kind of like a really fantastic place to be, and really amazing to work for such a big Australian company. I then worked for Optus, which was kind of bit kind of crazy, but I had my first child, and it was very, you know, my role had completely changed when I came back to work, stuff that happens to women. And during that time at Optus, it was the biggest sale of a company ever, and we ended up being owned by Singtel, and I was lucky enough to get a role within a Singtel company, and I learnt about e-government, and that was the whole idea of making government simpler for people and taking away all the paperwork and the bureaucracy, and since then I've been working as a consultant in consulting in government, doing a range of different initiatives, and it led me to join Microsoft. So I was at Microsoft for 5 years as a digital advisor. I actually ended up doing banking as well as government and transport. And I got obsessed by AI, Michele. I got obsessed by all the things it can do to make our lives easier in terms of computer vision and being able to read documents and being able to understand words, but also in making life more inclusive for people with disabilities, particularly if you're blind or neurodiverse, like some of the things that AI can do. So I got really obsessed by that. And now I work for an engineering company called Fraser Nash, who are amazing, and they are looking at becoming more digital, use more AI in their business, look at more predictive analytics, things like that. And they allow me to work part-time for RMIT in the Centre of Industrial AI Research and Innovation, where every day I talk to researchers and I think about what could we do with AI to make the world more human, more livable, you know, create better jobs, you know, cope with the workforce transformation that AI is going to create, and really just get to hang out with some really smart people and start to think about, you know, what the future is going to look like.
Wow, what an amazing and impressive background, and you did such a great job there, Rita, of encapsulating it and your journey through that in such a, I mean, you're talking about quite a wide range of technology, and from that dot matrix kind of printer and the Wild West days at the beginning all the way through to AI and VR and robotic learning and all of the different things that we're talking about nowadays. And I guess that one of the things that I'm sure people will be really interested in understanding, given that you've got that unique insight into large organisations and industrial organisations and engineering, etc. What is it then that success means to you with such an insight into technology and human behaviour? What does success to you now mean?
Well, it's really interesting because, when I originally started working in technology, I thought it was so cool that, I was like looking at all these new tech and I was like selling it by the pallet and all that kind of stuff. But a friend of mine was running a radio show called Bite Into It on Triple R, and he said, do you want to join and, bring your kind of spark to it and talk about it, and we'll interview people and we'll talk about technology. And the main reason why I joined, because I wanted to do it, is because I think people are still very scared of tech, and it was about trying to demystify it so that, we could accelerate what we're going to do with it. And so for me, success is any kind of change or implementation of a new way of doing things that, traditionally we've always done it the same. And I think it's actually quite a hard step to take because, when you think about my engineers, they're very much thinking about, that's the way we've always done it. And if you think about banking, it's always like business as usual, but being able to, for me to be able to innovate and be able to bring new things to life, I find that really motivating. And there's so many hurdles you have to cross to do that. So it's part, it's part about the journey, but also about what actually happens. And, it's really interesting. Every single project kind of comes together in different ways. And, you never know which bits are going to be the most successful, but it is about trying really hard. And I think the way people describe that, it's kind of having a growth mindset. You probably know about all this stuff, being a mindset coach, but it's about always wanting to not only be successful in what you do today, but thinking about what you're going to do in the future. And that's what makes me happy. I suppose a lot of other people aren't, that they look at it in a different way, but that's what makes me happy. And it's really funny, when I was a young girl, I thought the only thing that was going to be the only thing I ever wanted to do was have children and get married. And I think once I did that, I realized there were so many other things that I could take on, but that just sounded like the biggest challenge ever.
Wow. And again, such a so much, and I'm sitting here going, so much in such few and powerful words, and the experiences and the learnings and everything behind what you're sharing is just kind of, my mind's going wow, wow, wow. But if I think through some of what you were sharing around, that growth and what some people might find really challenging and difficult to sort of work within, that confusion and that growth that you're describing, well, you thrive in it and you enjoy it and you love working through those phases and those transitions with people. That's a really fabulous skill set, and also helping them, the people that are scared and the less scared and the people that love it, but wherever people are on that scale, helping them to embrace that new technology and yes, very much the challenges that now brings, and how success then means to you, supporting people, supporting organisations, supporting yourself through that growth mindset of transitioning through whatever it is that you're working through at the time. And I'm sure many people watching and hearing this have been going, well, give me some of that. I'd love to know how I can also build that growth mindset or that success mindset. So I'm perhaps not as scared of technology or worried about the future or worried about my job and my role in the future. What sort of tips, because we don't really know the future, What sort of tips for creating that successful mindset would you share with people?
Well, I really so the first thing that really, got me going was my radio show. It kind of helped me build confidence. And then when I came back to work and I'd had my second child, and I really couldn't do what I'd been doing at Telstra before that, and I was like, what do I do? I really started to tap into this idea of meetups and like meeting other professionals. So I got obsessed by the idea of understanding certain technologies. So at that time, it was around knowledge management, SharePoint, and like how to make it easier to find information. And I started going to business user groups. So like I used Meetup, and I'd go to that kind of stuff. And I went to one day, and this lady comes up to me, and she was amazing. She goes, I just want to go to one of these groups where people stop talking about technology and they actually talk about people. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, and you're going to make that group for me. And I was like, okay. So we started a business user group, which was not about the technical people talking about technology. It was about business people talking about how they implement it and what are some of the challenges. And that was a huge growth for me, because it was like all of a sudden, I had to find a venue. I had to like promote it to people. I had to do a bit of use my marketing skills. And so that's a big tip. And so if you want to learn about new things, so like when I wanted to learn about AI, I went to a data science meetup, and it was amazing, Michelle. It was like 100 guys, and I was the only girl right up the front. I even took a selfie of all the guys, but because I just couldn't believe it. And but they were amazing. They were talking about some of the things that they were experimenting with. This one guy was trying to figure out, how to predict who was going to win the soccer. And so he was studying all these soccer matches, and then, companies were paying him to do this because there's a lot of money behind that. And somebody else was, working on medical AI and computer vision and that kind of stuff. And I started to get a flavor for it, because it was outside of business hours. I had a beer with everyone afterwards. It was more like I'm taking myself out to learn something new. And so I found those meetups were amazing. And the third thing that I started doing, which scared me at first as well, was this idea of hackathon, right? And I don't know, people still think, I'm like cyber hacking somewhere, but it's actually not. It's like getting together and thinking about a challenge and trying to solve it in one day. And I did this one week hackathon once with a whole lot of graduates from the consulting company I was working for, and it was about IoT. And we learned so much in that day. Like in that week, we learned how IoT sensors work, how to connect them, how to build applications. And it was like doing, a half-year uni degree. And so you'll actually notice that a lot of universities have been really changing the way they teach and make it more boot camp style, so that you don't have so much theory. You just have, like, this is what we're trying to solve. So that I found that's been very powerful to take those three things on, the meetups, maybe running your own meetup, and going to hackathons.
Wow, again, so much deep insights there that you're sharing, and reminding me of my own days. I'm not a programmer, but I remember going to a Microsoft Silverlight conference and sitting there.
You're amazing.
Sitting there, same sort of thing, going, how did I end up here? But being blown away with the world that they were talking about, and the changes and the step changes, not the incremental changes that were happening. Because I thought, oh yeah, I've written some SQL code.
And I think people are realizing that technology is not just about coders anymore. It is about designers, and it's about people that can tell a story about what it's about, and how it's going to benefit people. And I'm a storyteller, so that's been, I've found my place, even though I'm not a coder. So that's kind of an exciting way.
Very much so. And I think that linkage between, one of the funny things I still say to people is it's a tool. So the technology is a tool, but what is it that you're trying to do, and is it the best tool for doing that? But before we go further, I just wanted to mention that IoT is Internet of Things, because I did realise that not everybody watching will have some of that jargon. So I'll look back later, and if there's other things, I'll add it into the comments when we post this. But I think that definitely your skill set, what you're describing about becoming a storyteller around the technology, and what it can do for things is one of those other great examples where people watching this and thinking, well, I'm not really interested in programming, but I want to know about technology. There are so many other ways that you can look for work and find roles that aren't just necessarily about coding anymore. User experience testing, all of these things are actually much more those soft skill sides of, again, like I look at it, it's a tool. So how are we using the tool, and is it the best tool for the role?
And that's an amazing insight that you've gained, because I wish more people would know that, because I think particularly even young people, there's so much more to do in technology than just coding. So obviously it's a really important part of it, but there's so many other elements.
Exactly. And I'm thinking also then with the tips for creating that mindset, and for the young people, or even maybe people that are older and part of that great resignation that's happening over these few years, what sort of suggestions for creating that mindset for success would you suggest? Because you've actually been through a number of senior roles and worked, like you were saying, in environments where you were the only female, so you might have been slightly different just from the nature of being the only female. So what sort of tips would you suggest to people for creating that mindset where they can be resilient and they can kind of keep going towards their goals?
Well, I think it's a hard question for me, because I'm very driven in terms of always wanting to get paid each month, and that's really important to me. So that really does drive me in terms of I don't want to be in a situation where I can't afford to pay rent and can't afford to do a lot of those kind of things. So it kind of drives that. But I think there's more to it, right? There's the higher goals, and because I've always loved this whole idea of discovering new technology. So you got to find that thing that you love, right? And find that thing that makes you happy. So it could be that you just like to do different things. So yeah, but I think by the time you've had a few jobs, you kind of know what you like, and I think you got to tap into that. But I also think you got to tap into people as well. I really suffered during COVID because I'm such a people's person, and just being able to drop in and have a coffee with someone that wasn't on a screen, I was really missing that. And so I think tapping into your networks is really important, and being able to have those more casual conversations that aren't a bit more serendipitous. And I think we miss that. I think I get a lot of inspiration from trade shows or conferences or these meetups if you can't afford those more expensive ones, and that really keeps me going and makes me think that my career is exciting and vital. And even if it is cosmetic, I think it's not really, because it's more about keeping that part of you going, that what you're doing is exciting. So
and I think you described it so beautifully, around finding what you're passionate about, and then whether it's a meetup or a hackathon or starting your own group in whatever way that works for you. I think that those very practical tools, or even at the most common bottom line of I want to pay the bills, or I want to buy a car, or I want to whatever it is, whatever the inner drive is really important. And it's not about the technology, it's about that inner drive to be successful and to pay the bills, or to meet other people and hang out with other people to talk about exciting stuff that you're passionate about. And I think these are really great tips for people to keep going and to keep improving their lives.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. They seem pretty basic to me, but I think that they're really, like, I actually went to an International Women's Day thing today, and we had a senator speaking who's like the Senator for Women Affairs and Digital Industries, and she was just talking about how women and superannuation, like how we just don't think it's important and until we're in our late 50s, but it's we're going to live for a long time. We all know that. We're not going to have we're going to have longer lives. So I think these kind of financial capabilities are really important as we start to save for those longer lives and, have more grandchildren around us, or whatever it is that you do, travel more, do virtual travel, like whatever it is. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more life to live, and therefore a lot more financial capability to be required.
And I think that's one of the interesting areas for me that I was getting into just before COVID was all of that biotech around very much that, we're going to be living longer and the mental health elements of that are also interesting in terms of, the quality of life and it may not necessarily just be a physical kind of side of things, because we could get to the point where everything's replaceable on the human body. But would you necessarily want to be living longer and that natural life cycle around things? So there's I'm sure, like you will have in the tech world, many different ethical questions that kind of filter into, that mental wellness and that mental health, and also then, setting up what your life looks like for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years in terms of success for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so with that mindset element in mind, and you have got that unique insights, I guess, in terms of AI, when people are looking at technology and looking at different devices, is there any insights around, how it can support building those mindset for successes, or is it really more around just taking time out from your devices so that you connect more into yourself without the device? What's your sort of views on that?
Yeah, so I think we often do the same thing on our devices. So finding ways to do new things is exciting. So, like, I know you might want to have a look at TikTok, or you might want to look at different ways that you use technology beyond your PC and your phone. And Zoom has been a great example of that during COVID. But I always try and tap into new things. Like you said, I've got my HoloLens here, which is a mixed reality headset. Different. I can still see you. I'm not buried in a virtual reality environment, but this augments the world. And so a lot of people think that in the future these will be quite small, more like glasses, and I'm going to see holographic representations. And at the moment, this is being really used extensively in industrial areas around, making the construction of complex objects easier, to be able to, learn equipment and hardware so that we can transform and learn things faster. So it's a really big area of learning because it's a more immersive experience. Also being able to spatially see things, because we've been living in this 2D world, and then to be able to have these 3D objects and how that's going to change what's going on in our minds as well. So I would always try and check out new technology. If there's a trade show you can go to, or there's a friend you've got, or someone have a go at it and see how it's relevant to your business, and see how it can, or your passions, and see how it can kind of change what's going on in that world.
Again, some really great insights, because I think going back to what you were first sharing around some people being scared of technology, etc., that the reality is that the speed with which technology is transforming our lives is going to keep increasing. And I love the little device and the glasses and things, and digital humans, and there's so many different digital twinning and
twins, yeah,
the different elements that will become more and more a part. And it's funny, because if you said to people, when Blockbuster Video was around, one day Netflix will be here and you'll be streaming videos, and they would have gone, what do you mean? In the same kind of way, I think, the leap from Blockbuster videos to video streaming through something like Netflix will be another jump again, but we don't quite know where that jump will be to. And so staying ahead of it, I love how you keep coming back to, going to the different industry events and keeping an open and curious mind, because that will help you to be less fearful around technology and where things are going, and help you to navigate, well, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I can leave, and this is what I'm a little bit more concerned about. So you might lean into it more to understand it. So,
because there's, a lot of people, like I'm going to this robotics event later in the week, and, they talk about that shift where, a lot of boring, dull, dangerous jobs will be done by robots, and it's going to stress some people out, right? So, just instead of fighting it, maybe we can start to find ways to embrace it and live with it and transform, because otherwise we are going to have, more protests and, the inability to be able to earn an income. So I think having a growth mindset is really important in this day and age, when you're right, there's going to be this exponential acceleration, and, we could just cash out and go live in the country, but you're going to miss out on all this stuff.
I know, it's so exciting, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
there's always good and bad to everything, and ups and downs, but the more that you can kind of embrace that uncertainty, and that's what I was saying earlier in the session about how you role model so beautifully that embracing that uncertainty, and some of the tips that you're sharing, where people, by going to those different groups or surrounding themselves with people that think differently, they can actually break down some of that natural fear and resistance that comes up, and that can help their mindset to kind of see, well, okay, I can see more opportunities of where this might work for me or support me with my future.
True. You had a lovely way of summarising things. No wonder your TV show is so successful, Michele. Well done.
Oh, thank you, Rita. That's very kind of you. And I know that unfortunately the show's such a short period of time, but how can people reach out to you or contact you after this?
Okay, well, I'm really big on LinkedIn. I think it's like the most exciting professional network, because you can find people that are like-minded. So you can find me on Rita Arrigo on LinkedIn. I also do Instagram if you want to just see some of the pictures of my life, Rita Arrigo. I also do a bit of TikTok, so obviously that's Rita Arrigo too. I'm on Twitter, Arrigo. And obviously I'm on Facebook as well. So there's plenty of places to find me. And if you really, just want to do the face-to-face, I'm in the city most days. But you might have to make a time.
That's very generous of you. But it also fits in with what you were saying earlier about you really love to meet people, and now that things are opening up, meeting people will be even easier and stuff. So thank you so much for that. And I love to ask this question of people about what advice might you give your younger self?
Oh, I would definitely tell myself to have more confidence. It's taken me so long to build the confidence, and I think we all need to have confidence in our skills. I really do think the imposter syndrome is real, but build that confidence, and I think it's, if I had confidence earlier, I think my career would have been very different by now. That's
yeah, I hear you, and sadly something that many women share, and it comes back to that confidence to kind of grow and fly and be the best version of themselves, and there's just a number of different environmental and historical elements that kind of are changing, which is the great news. I also think, and I'd be quickly interested in your view, I think technology is also a great leveler, because it doesn't matter if you're male or female, everybody can use that technology, and it then becomes less personalised to whether you're male or female, and I think it's a great leveler for people. But what do you think?
Yeah, to a certain extent, there's always some guy that thinks he's better at coding than you are, especially when I'm not a coder. but I think you're right. Like, I really noticed it when we during COVID and we all came home, there wasn't that difference between someone's in the office, someone's on Skype. You know, we're all the same. And that did make a really big difference. You know, the girl never got asked to take the notes, though sometimes they did, but never got asked to buy the coffees. So it definitely is. And I think it's also a leveler in other forms of diversity, like in terms of, you know, low-sightedness and, you know, hard of hearing. And because a lot of those kind of inclusions can come in through the technology. So I think it really opens up to people with disabilities as well, which I think is a really important aspect that we haven't been able to embrace before.
Fabulous. And again, I go down one path and you expand my path even more, which is just brilliant. And I've been so grateful that you've been on the show today. Thank you so much for coming today, Rita.
Oh, it's been a total pleasure, and I loved your insights, and I love learning from you as well. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. And so to all the viewers out there, it's been fabulous having you watching the show again today. Even the dog outside that was very happy watching the show and barking just then. But from my heart to your heart, until next time, be great, be fabulous, and be you.